make sure that whenever you put something in your mouth, that something is going to compliment you. If you don't, you will find yourself stressed.
His 64-day fast in Philadelphia showed his strong dedication.
What I did in the last 6 months, approximately 8 months ago, I stopped eating for 64 days. But I made a mistake. I made a mistake because I had a speech to do in Philadelphia. And by not eating for those 64 days, I was going for 90 days. But I remembered I had a speech to do in Philadelphia. So when I went to do the speech, I fainted. I had to faint because I was talking too long and I was not eating for 64 days.
He believed glucose is the hidden enemy of fat loss.
What I've done was to discontinue anything that had glucose. Glucose is the underlying enemy. Whenever you indulge in glucose, it would be difficult to lose fat. I live in Honduras.
Yes.
Okay, and California. In Honduras, I discovered a plant known as Cusca.
Okay.
Cusca is a plant that the Maya used to use. And they used another one known as the teosinte.
Okay.
I eat those plants. Those plants doesn't have starch or glucose. You will look at your body losing weight and you're gonna get frightened. Gene food consistency, meaning your cellular predisposition determines what you should eat.
Dr. Sebi saw things differently from conventional medicine.
So when I went to Mexico, I had already traveled to Russia. I was in St. Petersburg. I was in London. I've been to Spain. I've been to many places in Africa. I was asthmatic. I was impotent. I had diabetes. I was in fact crazy. I was placed in an insane asylum in New Jersey in 1961. Schizophrenia and paranoia. So I'm schizophrenic, paranoia, I'm impotent, I'm diabetic, I'm asthmatic from birth. So I go to Mexico. And the man asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "I am from Honduras." He said, "We cannot talk." I said, "Why?" "Because black folks doesn't come from Honduras."
Okay.
Maya come from Honduras. Maya and Paya and Lenca. So where you from? "Oh, I'm from Africa." Now we talking. Now because you are from Africa, do you believe that God was drunk when he put black people in Africa? I said, "No." "Well, do you believe that he put a diet there for you?" I said, "Sure." "And what's the diet?" "Rice and beans and potatoes and yams and cows and hogs and lamb." He said, "Not so. That's not the diet of an African." "What is the diet of an African?" He said, "The same as the Toltec and the Olmec. All that which is native." But I didn't know these things because I was a Muslim.
Okay.
You know, I was in Islam. I love Islam.
Yes.
Islam gave me a whole lot of good things. I mean, I met Elijah Muhammad.
Okay.
I met the messenger, talking to him like I'm talking to you.
Okay.
But the messenger's information at the time needed a little bit more help. So he told me that I could not eat meat any longer, no lamb. I could not drink any milk. And
So
I abstained from all these things, and here I am now at 82. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life.
Instead of viruses, he thought, our diet is the real cause of disease.
Whenever you make a statement that goes against the grain, you better be prepared. So all these years, we have been following medical science. They say that disease is what? Germ, virus, bacteria. I said, no. It's the food that you eat. The food better be consistent with you. Gorilla does not eat polar bear food. But if the gorilla ever make the mistake and put into its mouth the food of the polar bear, he too would find diseases that we are finding ourselves with. It happened right here in New York in the zoo. Gorillas in the zoo got diabetes, not in the forest. Yeah. My parting word would be this. Make sure that whenever you put something in your mouth, that something is going to complement you and that it's going to serve you well. It's going to support your nervous system. Because if you don't, you will find yourself stressed. Not only are you going to find reasons to dislike me, you're going to dislike yourself. Glucose is the greatest enemy that you could ever be faced with. Avoid it. Because the one thing you want to do is to love. And that love should begin with you. Once you love you, you love the whole world. It's easy. It's delicious to love everybody and everything.
Distilled water, he said, is great for our health.
I would recommend us to buy distilled water to cook with.
Okay.
Not to drink.
Okay.
To cook with. Because distilled water has a pH of 7. It will rob you of your minerals. To drink the water, the glacier is good. Perrier is good. Anything that is done by Mother Nature, if the alkalinity is being obtained through a process of osmosis, it's no good. It will injure you because they have done it mechanically. You want nature to do it. This is why in the village in Honduras, Mr. G was saying to me tonight that his knee, he had to go and see a doctor for years with his knee that was paining him. So my daughter told Mr. G to go get in the thermal water. And Mr. G could not believe how could this water do all of this because of the level of oxygen. Water needs to have a high level of oxygen. What we intend to do in the $200 million of the Bolingo project, we buy a refrigerated boat. To do what? To bring from Honduras the water we are talking about to supply this region, the west and the east, the north. Yes, water is important.
He taught that pH balance is key to our body's healing.
The way that the compounds came into existence, being a steam engineer, I knew that the pH value, the pH factor, had a lot to do with healing. And the herbalists then, like the herbalists today, are unaware that the pH factor has a lot to do with it. Meaning this, I said that if God tell us that the herbs are for the healing of the nations, in the book of Genesis, in the book of Ezekiel, in the book of Exodus, and the book of Revelation, it says that the herbs are for the healing of the nations. Then as I go further into the history of medicine, this is what I found, that the great Hippocrates used herbs to cure disease, and that he cured every disease known to man. This man was curing every disease in Greece 365 years before Christ was even born. So when people tell us that only Jesus healed, you remind them that Hippocrates was here long before he was born, 300 years. So I said, if Jesus cured with herbs, Hippocrates cured with herbs, and God said the herbs, then what's up? Why aren't we curing with herbs today? So I said, one day when I went to work, my wife and I was talking all night. We were engaged in this conversation about these herbs. So Ma said to me that there could be something locked someplace that prevent us from accomplishing the goals that Jesus Christ and Hippocrates accomplished. When I went to work that night, I found it. I laughed. Oh, I was so happy. I was extremely happy because I said, it is required of us to maintain the pH at 6.9. At 7, which is the neutral zone, pH of 7 is neutral. And if it is slightly on the acid side, it's 6.9. And the reason why we maintain the pH at 6.9 is to keep the tubes of the boiler clean, that there will be no life form in there. But if the pH is 7.1, oh, now you're going to experience life. Life form will begin to accumulate in the tubes of the boiler, preventing the radiant heat or the convection heat from reaching the tubes. I said that if life was so powerful that it could exist in a temperature of 450 degrees, then the herbs that heal would have to be alkali on 7 plus instead of acid 6.9. Then I begin to check the pH of all the herbs. I begin to test it. I test comfrey, acid. I test garlic, acid. I also tested aloe vera, St. John wort, rose hips, comfrey. All of these things are very acid. Carrot juice is extremely acid, yet the healers in New York then and now are still recommending these acid foods.
He warned about the dangers of peppermint oil.
So I said, well, let me investigate further to see which are the alkali herbs. And I begin to see that burdock, yellow dock, also the elderberry, these are alkali plants. Also the Virginia snake root, that's alkali. One has to know the herbs that are alkali opposed to the herbs that are acid. This today is not really considered, nor do they follow that particular, road or understanding, because the herbalists of today are recommending peppermint. Peppermint is very acid. Peppermint freezes the brain. Some even recommend peppermint oil. Peppermint oil is extremely caustic. So now we have this kind of information in front of us being disseminated and carried out. So there's confusion in the population. But the one thing that my supporters or the people that helped me, that counseled me, they said to me, Sebi, the one thing that you have in your favor is that you have cure and you are curing the diseases that others are not curing. So that is the barometer that tells us that the acid herb that they're using prevent them from reaching the goal that they're pursuing. It was my steam engineering experience.
Dr. Sebi believed only foods made by God can keep us healthy.
That helped me in herbology to understand the herb that God made. Yes, it has to be made by God. If we eat something that God didn't make, we are running the risk of disease. Then we're going to be angry. Like I were at only 30 years of age, I was extremely angry. Do you have any idea? The anthropologist has no idea, but it would spout out these numbers for you, that God made the universe 9.5 billion years ago. So the other is, when did he put black people in Africa? They say 1.5 million years ago. But what was the food that God placed in Africa for these people? Certainly, it could not have been potatoes. It could not have been rice or beans or yams or chicken or hogs or cows. It could not be a goat or a lamb, because all these things are hybrid. God did not make these things. These things came just recently, only 4,000 years ago. So what were we eating in Africa before we were taken away? What were we eating in Africa before there was an invasion by the man from Europe? We simply do not know. And it is because we are unaware of this diet that God made specifically for us. This is why we're angry today and we're so divided. Everybody's laughing at us. They're laughing more at me. On the airplane, the pilots came to see me a few weeks ago when I was in the plane before 911, and they were looking at the brochure that I had that says that AIDS has been cured And the herbalist cure AIDS, and the Supreme Court of New York cannot deny, can't disagree. They were laughing at me. Why? Because you are not supporting me. So they think that I'm a fake.
His unique approach went beyond traditional healing methods.
I am a recipient of the way also. And last night, as you mentioned, last night was just a surprise to me, and it was for the audience, because I was talking about things that I wasn't prepared to talk about. I didn't edit that in my head. That came out later. I had something altogether different. But about the success rate depends primarily on the philosophy that I follow, or the arrangement that I follow. See, when I came into healing, the understanding of it, I saw where there was allopathic, there was homeopathic, there was Ayurvedic, there was yin yang, there was the macrobiotic. But what I noticed that nobody was healing, but they had all these systems. But all these systems, none of them represented me. I'm an African, came out of the jungle. Macrobiotic is Japanese. Ayurvedic is Indian. Yin Yang is Chinese. Homeopathy is European. But I'm an African. You mean to tell me that God was drunk when he put me in Africa? And when he put me there, he didn't put all of the components that would support my life? No. Everything I needed was in Africa. He didn't put us there and say, well, I'm going to put these people here, but then I'm going to omit a component that support their life in Japan, that they have to go to Japan and get it. No. God doesn't arrange things like that. The Japanese has what they need, the Eskimo has what he needs, and the black man has what he needs. But why is it that being an African, I have to practice the modality of others? Because I have lost my ways. So what I did was to recognize that black woman in the jungle. She had the answer. It seemed as if though, when I talk this way, I'm not connecting when I talk about a black woman in the forests of Africa. Yeah? But she's the one that set the standards. She's the one that raised the bar. She's the one that lives in an alkali environment. She is the only one where there is a history showing that she didn't have a doctor, and she didn't have any medicine. She didn't have any hospital. Why? She lived in direct compliance with the life process, in direct compliance with the laws of life, in other words. How could she be sick? How could she get sick? But now today, for us to turn our eyes towards Africa, it is kind of a tedious, because the historians, the anthropologists, the paleontologists, they wrote about Africa in a little funny way.
Yeah,
it was not too palatable.
Right.
So we, our children, have a tendency to believe in what they wrote about Mama, but not me. Well, I was looking at something altogether different, because this woman here has the answer. Her environment was alkali. The body needs alkalinity. So I began selecting from the forest plants that were not made. Comfrey is made, aloe vera is made, ginseng is made, peppermint is made, and soy is made. These are the very things that the herbalists today are using. Well, I didn't do that because I had help along the way. Because I too was indulging in reading these books, these herbal books. And what I found one day, I read Ivan Kirkakov, the Russian. Then you got Myers. And then you have Christopher. Then you have Culpeper. Then you have Hipólito Rodriguez. Then you have Jethro Claus. And I look at all these books one day, and guess what? They all have the same prescription. By the time we got to Egypt, we were sick. Imhotep I was not the wisest man on the planet. This man opened the human body. If the human body needed to be opened, it would have a zip on it.
Right.
So he was messing up.
So any incision
But the Greek who went to Africa and saw the African swinging on trees, never getting sick, he watched them, that they were never sick. But then he noticed that what they were eating was what maintained their health. And that's when he came up, your food shall be your medicine. Imhotep I was cool for the Egyptian. But we go before Imhotep I. Our life began long before there was an Imhotep. Egypt was already eating ducks. Egypt was already hybridizing animals. Egypt became a mixture of Greek, Persian, and African.
He found that ancient wisdom and herbs hold the cure for many diseases.
And this is precisely why Cleopatra couldn't find a black man to marry. She had to go all the way to Italy.
Right.
Because Italy controlled Egypt at some point. This is the thing about Egypt that is confusing with many of us. Well, with me, it was never confusing. Why? Because I could see realities in my face. And maybe I am interpreting this reality my way. And maybe so. But this is what I saw. In 1972, every brother in Los Angeles, under the leadership of Dr. Joseph Ben Yochanan, they were going to Egypt. And I was saying, now, what are they going to Egypt for? But they were flying to Egypt. And then when they came to ask me, Brother Kamal said, why don't you go to Egypt, Dr. Sebi? Or Sebi? I said, for what? A bunch of stones? But they went. And they came back with souvenirs. But when I went to the jungle, I didn't come with any souvenir. I came back with healing.
Right.
I came back with Sia. I came back with Kankansa. I came back with Popa. These herbs are electrical. They assimilate. Those who went to Egypt, they came back with these souvenirs.
Right.
Or a piece of rock. I would catalog the herb, bring them with me, and send them to Lancaster Laboratories, asking them to tell me what is the active ingredient in these plants. And if that active ingredient doesn't associate, doesn't connect with the disease that they claimed that they were using it for, well, I know that they were in error. But guess what happened? Every herb that I got from those people who we considered natives, indigenous, when the reading came back from the laboratory, they say yes. The Kankansa would affect you. I don't care how old you are, but it has a high concentration of zinc. The other one, which is the Sia, they said it has a lot of potassium phosphate. I removed a tumor for Michael Jackson's son's head. Then the other one from Peru, the one that is called the Condurango. The woman said it's good for your blood. Well, the woman in Honduras got cured of leukemia. But how did they know? I had to send the herb to Lancaster Laboratory because it is the leading laboratory in the world when it comes to biological or biochemical research. How did they know? You know how they know? Just like the gorilla know what to eat. The gorilla doesn't have any nutritionists. But you and I, who went to school, who are educated and civilized, we need a book to eat right. We want to worship God, go buy a book. Well, how come these people in the jungle doesn't have all that?
Book, right?
Because they are connected. I don't care what degree you may have. If you aren't cosmically connected, you cannot see. You are blind. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And I saw many of us do that.